have meaningful conversations with business owners where they say yes to themselves and they invest in themselves to attain the goals that they have. So often businesses get to a point where business owners need help to fall back in love with their business because it gets so demanding and overwhelming, and it can become just a big hairy job, and that's not what they want. And I love to help them move away from that. And so if they're caught in that trap, to help them recognize that they don't have to suffer. They can actually make changes that will actually get them where they want to go.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're joined by Brent Holtman, a profit and growth strategist and founder of Kairos Profit Coach. Brent works with entrepreneurs to help them dramatically improve their profitability by refining their sales strategies and optimizing their operations. And you've worked, Brent, with business owners and across the gamut in terms of industries, aligning sales, operations. You also have been featured in major outlets like ABC, NBC, CBC, CBS, and Fox News, Wall Street Journal. I could just go on and on, it seems. I'm excited to dive in today and kind of just learn some tips from you on some of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs might be making when it comes to profit and the systems that every growing company really needs to grow. So thanks for being here, Brent.
Heather, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And you're based in Colorado. You already shared that. Such a beautiful part of the country out there. And you're able to it sounds like you work with industries all in that area or across the country.
Yeah, actually, I can work with anyone, anywhere. Primarily, I work with folks in North America.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. And so, to get started, I would love to just hear a little bit about your journey into becoming a profit coach for entrepreneurs. Where did that start?
Well, I got involved with technical solutions for businesses of all different sizes when I was in a large corporate environment, and worked through that into recognizing that really my passion was in helping business owners to create solutions and to accomplish their goals. And so as time went by, I realized more and more that really focusing on helping them with their leadership, with their teams, and then with specific strategies and the implementation for those strategies to help them to accomplish revenue growth, because that's the basis for everything else that they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. And why you said the profit growth is really the focus for you because that you feel is the most poignant
Yeah,
aspect
that's
of growing a business.
exactly. That's really the thing that's front of mind, and is the 2 a.m. problem for a lot of small businesses, especially, is how can you grow revenue? How can you continue to level up the business and scale? And of course, there's really that thing of either you're moving forward or you're moving backwards. So to help them recognize how to move forward in really impactful ways.
Yeah. And I have to ask, what does the name Kairos Profit Coach represent?
Yeah, Kairos is actually a Greek word for something that's providentially timely. So
Mhm.
that just plays well with, if this is not the time for you to discover strategies and implement them and get your revenue where you want it, then when is the right time?
Yeah. Very insightful. So why do you think so many businesses do struggle with profitability even when revenue is growing?
Yeah, well, it's a combination, and I get into that with clients. We'll lay out a roadmap that really looks at, okay, how can you have revenue and profitability? Because
Mhm.
I love that question, because one of the things that we'll look at is things like cost cutting and helping business owners really understand their fixed costs, their variable costs, and what can be done within that world. Because, I think of, like, for a building trades contractor type business, they may have a lot of projects. They may have everything looking really good at the start, but then with waste and reworks and things like that, they can have a lot of revenue and no profit because it all gets eaten up in things that are just not handled the way they need to be out in the field.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, that's really, really insightful perspective that I think, like, do you think a lot of entrepreneurs think about that, as a startup company, for example, is that something in the back of their mind, like, or do you feel like they're more focused on revenue over profitability?
I think most of them are aware of both and concerned about both. The
Mhm.
challenge, I think, comes in what is it that needs to be looked at and specifically measured.
Mhm.
There's a real challenge with a lot of small businesses where they really don't know their numbers well. They're really not measuring all of the specific key performance indicators that they really need to. And sometimes they just don't know what to look at. For example, I found it's not uncommon for a small business to get in and just take a look at where they're spending money, and you might be able to find $10,000 or $20,000 in odds and ends that they're just bleeding out every month that they don't even realize is money being wasted.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really where you can come in and kind of offer some insight and kind of take an overview look.
Mhm.
When you're working with your clients, is there a common mindset shift that has to happen generally that you see before profit actually improves?
You know, it's really, yes, it's really a case of so often small business owners wear all the hats, or too many hats,
Mhm.
and they are busy working in their business at the expense of growing the business. Because if you're spending all your time working in the business and you're not being strategic and spending time working on your business,
Mhm.
then of course you're not growing your revenue and your profitability. And the other factor there is when you are setting aside that time, so you need to really have control of your schedule so you can block out time to work on your business. And then you need to know specific things to focus on when you do have that time set aside. So that's excuse me, the start point for a lot of the work that I'll do with people is we'll lay out a roadmap that looks at specific strategies and how to implement those. And it's all centered around very specific objectives for them to grow their business when they are thinking strategically and doing that work on the business.
Mhm. Yeah. And obviously every client is so different, right? So it's probably, hard to kind of dive into specific examples, but what do you like, thinking about maybe somebody that you've worked with recently, what were the key levers for them that really helped them to maybe triple their profits?
Yeah, and yeah, there is a unique roadmap for each client. But
Mhm.
to your question,
Mhm.
very often it starts with them really doing the work to identify who is their ideal client, what's
Mhm.
the number one problem that that client has, and then how can they communicate with that ideal client that they've
Mhm.
got the best solution so
Mhm.
that the client or the prospect recognizes this is who I want to do business with because they understand what I need. And
Yeah.
then they've got that information and they've already made the determination that, yes, I'm going to work with these folks because they get it. And what's really attractive about that and why that's the answer to your question is
Mhm.
if we don't, as business owners, provide that to our prospect,
Mhm.
understanding who the prospect that we really do serve best, who
Mhm.
that is, and what it is we're going to bring to them. If
Mhm.
we can't communicate that, all we leave them with is they compete on price. And competing on price is a race to the bottom. None of us wants that. But if you can differentiate yourself, then they're not comparing you to everybody else and saying, oh, they all look the same. I guess I'll just take the cheapest.
Right. So really that value proposition to the market is
Mhm.
really key.
Exactly. And of course, doing the work to identify that ideal client profile
Mhm.
helps a lot too, because there's a lot of business and then there's a lot of good business. And
Mhm.
so looking at who's my ideal client, one factor in that is who can I serve well and really provide a great solution to. But the other piece of it is what does that look like as far as profitability within the relationship with that particular client? Because if
Mhm.
you've got a whole lot of business that keeps you really busy, but you don't make any money on it, you're never going to go anywhere.
Mhm. So do you feel like that really understanding their target audience, their target market is the most important piece and like continuing to understand the value that they bring right to their client is the most important piece when it comes to profit.
Absolutely, because all of the things that they do to grow the business, to sell accounts, to retain clients, all of
Mhm.
that is built off of that basis. So that's really the cornerstone is, you know,
Yeah.
who's my client and how can I really take good care of my client? Because like with retention, to remind those current clients why it is they're doing business with you versus somebody else. So then if something comes across their radar and it's like, oh, maybe I should check that out. It's like, no, why would I do that? Because I've got exactly what I need with this current provider.
Mhm. Yeah. Right. So building that trust and that loyalty
Mhm.
with their
Mhm.
current clients. So what are
Exactly.
some things that businesses can do within their sales? I guess it's beyond sales, right? It's actually the delivery portion. Would you say that that's where they really build that trust and loyalty? Or is
Yeah,
it also it probably starts in the sales process as well?
it really starts with the marketing message. It's like communicating clearly what that client can expect, and
Mhm.
then closing the sale centers around affirming that yes, in fact, that's exactly what's going to happen, and then
Mhm.
delivery to actually meet and exceed their expectations, and to
Mhm.
assure that if there's ever a gap in the perception of that client, that that's addressed right away, and then of
Mhm.
course that long-term support to help them recognize that maybe there's additional things that come around to that initial solution that actually is going to even further strengthen the relationship and the
Mhm.
benefit that that client gets from that relationship.
Do you ever see entrepreneurs kind of misunderstanding, that balance between the pricing and the value that they're bringing to the client?
Yes, and where that shows up often is businesses that have been around for a while and have never raised prices. You know,
Mm.
with the environment, the economy over the last few years, if you've been in business years and years and you've never even looked at prices, you're probably underpriced, and that
Mhm.
may be misperceived in the market that you're not as good or that it's a less valuable proposition. And
Interesting.
one of the things a lot of times business owners will be afraid of is raising prices at all. And of course, you do it intentionally and thoughtfully,
Mhm.
but oftentimes you can increase prices by a good margin and
Mhm.
even maybe lose a few clients, but the ones you lose are your low margin clients. And you can actually end up with slightly fewer clients and a lot more revenue and more bandwidth to do a better job for your ideal clients.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really interesting that that's such a common thing that actually impacts the market's perceptibility of your value
Mhm,
is actually pricing it too low. Yeah.
mhm.
And that's yeah, that makes sense that as a business grows, it's challenging because they have their clients that have that rate that they expect and they don't want to jeopardize those relationships, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you think that there are any common like hidden profit leaks in a business that you see?
Um, Yeah, there definitely are. I mentioned the one example with the um, site management that ends up with reworks and waste. That's a very
Okay.
common one.
Can you tell
Um,
me a little bit more about that one?
yeah, for example, if you had a remodel contractor and
Mhm.
you've got a crew that's out, not measuring twice and cutting once, for example, where there's materials wasted because they're not being methodical in their approach to the project, or
Mhm.
sites where tools are left on site and so they have to be replaced, or
Mhm.
things like that, where it's a bleed that's easy to not notice unless you're paying attention. And, you can eat up a lot of profit in a
Mhm.
lot of different environments if you're
Mhm.
not really looking at, okay, where's our waste? Where's our inefficiency? Are there things that could be really changed that are simple? I remember years ago, I was visiting a company that manufactures uh, like slippers and booties and, kind of, uh, in your cabin sort of footwear.
Okay.
And they reorganized their shop floor so that the machines were lined up in a way that it was a very logical flow for things that move through, and it
Mhm.
reduced the number of steps and the time that was wasted in just
Mhm.
transferring an item from one uh, workstation to the next. And
Oh,
it,
wow.
it
Yeah.
it gave them like 20% gain just by thinking through, okay, what's the flow
Mhm.
of the manufacturer of each thing we do, and how can
Mhm.
we optimize that? And,
Mm.
it's like, well, obviously, but it's only obvious once it's occurred to you, right?
Yeah, so it sounds like for every business, um, there are always little tweaks that can be made to increase that profitability.
Mhm.
Aside from just kind of what we talked about, like the most important pieces, which is um, communicating your value to your target market, delivering on that expectation, and building that
Mhm.
trust and
Mhm.
loyalty with clients.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yep. So it's looking in, looking out, and just really considering what are the things we can do. And what's really great about it, Heather, is so many of these things can be done with little or no additional cost, which
Mm.
again is a benefit to the revenue and profitability.
Yeah. And with your, with your own business or with your clients, are you seeing any major shifts right now in the industry?
Um, yeah, in my business, a lot more technology, a lot more AI
Mhm.
inside of the support because there's a lot it does well as a tool. So I see that in a lot of places in a lot of businesses.
Mhm.
And then the flip side of that is I see a lot of businesses, a lot of business owners who seem to be hesitant, maybe afraid of
Mhm.
AI,
Yeah. Mhm.
and so they're avoiding it.
Yeah.
So I think there's kind of a middle of the road, which is understand it's a tool that's growing and it's not going away. And how can I use it best in my business? Don't
Mhm.
avoid it. And then don't check your brain at the door because it isn't your mind. It isn't the ultimate decision. It's just really, really strong tool to support and give you good input.
Yeah. Is that a tool that you use with in your own business or with your clients,
Mhm.
AI to, work on the things we talked about, like the value
Mhm.
proposition, the communication with clients, delivery, operational leaks, all of these things?
Absolutely. And it varies from client to client. I mean, it's not an AI based here. Here's an AI solution.
Mhm.
But AI is a tool that very definitely I use. And I help clients understand how to use AI within their own businesses to
Mhm.
whatever extent makes sense and that they're comfortable with.
How do you feel that this trend with the AI has impacted your business? You said you've already started implementing some AI into your business?
Yeah, it increases efficiencies, and there's a lot of kind of administrative, uh,
Mhm.
you know, inside the machine sorts of stuff that AI does incredibly well. And
Mhm.
it can handle things quicker than people can. And
Mhm.
it can be done in a way where it has absolutely no negative impact on the client experience or on the human factor.
Mm. Yeah. Can you give an example of how it's helped your business specifically?
Yeah,
Curious.
so for example, like certain evaluations that
Mhm.
used to be done completely manually might take an hour to 2.5 hours.
Mhm.
An AI tool can really save the client a lot of time and me as well because an AI based evaluation tool can go through something that would take a person an hour and do it in under 10 minutes.
Mm. Yeah. And this provides an evaluation of your client's business as part of what you do as a consultant with them.
Yeah, it's looking at specific things that they are doing and things that they may want to consider doing. So creating roadmaps.
Great. Wonderful. And for your own business, what do you feel like is working the best right now? And then what's been maybe a challenge that you're facing in your own business?
Um, really just getting at those fundamental things, creating that clarity around who's the ideal client,
Mhm.
what's the solution. I call it the position of market dominance, where you're actually putting out that clarity around,
Mhm.
here's what I can do for you. I understand your problem, and here's how I'm going to solve that for
Mhm.
you. Really is just so impactful. And then I guess the biggest challenge is just there's so much uncertainty in the market, just
Mhm.
economic
Mhm. Yeah.
considerations, tariffs, et cetera. And okay, where's AI play in to where there's a lot of uncertainty? So I see a lot of businesses where the business owners are putting things on hold rather than navigating, they're waiting. And I think especially in times that are more tumultuous, like now,
Mhm. Yeah.
to chart a course is probably a lot better uh, situation than standing by and hoping something good comes down the road.
Yeah. And so with your own business, obviously you're facing the same challenge that a lot of companies or like, all businesses are facing right now, right?
Mhm.
Um, what is most frustrating about that for your business? Like what's been the biggest challenge for you? Is it just um, you know, do you feel like you have to reposition your offering? Do you feel like, you're going through any sort of changes with your own business?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, obviously there's continual change in keeping up with trends and technologies and all that. But the biggest, I guess, frustration would be when a business owner recognizes that they definitely need what we're talking about,
Yeah.
but then they're fearful of actually doing
Mhm.
it. It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I need it, but, and
Mhm.
that but is such a boat
Right.
anchor word. And
Right.
that's unfortunate when I'm talking with someone and we've laid out a roadmap. They clearly see the
Mhm.
benefit, the outcome is going to give them exactly what they're hoping for. They're going
Right.
to accomplish that number one goal, but
Right.
then they're afraid to execute.
Right. And they're kind of holding back right now just because of all the economic stuff
Yeah.
going on right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. And so in your business, it sounds like you're overcoming these challenges. I'm sure you're, you know, um, continually evolving communication and strategy and everything to kind of work with this unique challenge. Or maybe it's just a matter of building those relationships now. And then when things economically kind of stabilize a bit, then they'll be knocking at your door, right?
Mhm.
So with that in mind, staying positive, right? Where do you really want to be with your business in the next 6 to 12 months? Like, what are your goals right now?
Yeah, my goals are to continue to grow my new client relationships and to strengthen my current client relationships,
Mhm.
to explore ways to increase my value and to keep current and relevant in all the different
Mhm.
aspects of things. And what's interesting is there are certain things that are just core fundamental. This is stuff that if you don't know it, you need to know it because it
Mhm.
works. And that doesn't change. But then, for example, utilizing technologies in evaluations and in deliveries of certain things, that
Mhm.
is ever changing. So to really keep that balance of
Mhm.
utilizing what's new
Mhm.
in strengthening what is foundational.
Got it. Yeah. And so you're continuing to you want that's your goal for your business is to
Hmm.
continue to strengthen those foundational pieces, but also innovate with
Yeah,
technology, like you've already
yeah,
mentioned with AI and other things like
yeah.
that to bring in probably maybe it's a matter of bringing in more initial conversations if
Mhm.
there are a higher number of people who are hesitant, for example.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's really important for people like myself as an advisor, if I'm not doing what I'm encouraging you to do, that's a big disconnect. So,
Mhm.
it's kind of the eating my own cooking kind of a thing, where if I'm going to encourage a client to do something, they should be able to ask me, so how are you doing it? And them to be able
Yeah.
to recognize, yeah, I do it. And maybe it executes a little different for my business than it will for their business. But
Mhm.
at its core, we're both doing the same things to get to the outcomes and accomplish those goals.
Which is such a powerful combination to be offering, assistance with clients who are dealing with the same problems that you and all business owners are
Mhm.
facing right now, and to learn together and to try to, evolve and face those challenges together. That sounds like really meaningful work.
It really is. I love it.
Wonderful. If you could just like, it could be with AI or it could be with anything, if you're able to just get rid of, like one thing in your unique business that you feel like is holding you back right now, what would that be?
Um, I need this, but um, you know, to have um, to have meaningful conversations with business owners where
Mhm.
they say yes to themselves and they invest in themselves to attain the goals that they have. So often businesses get to a point where business owners um, need help to fall back in love with their business because it gets uh, so demanding and overwhelming, and it can become just a big hairy job, and that's not what they want. And I
Mhm.
love to help them move away from that. And so if they're
Mhm.
caught in that trap, to help them recognize that, they don't have to suffer. They can actually make changes that will actually get them where they want to go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that as another goal, right?
Mhm.
Um, to bring that transformation to the mindset of your clients and help them see their businesses in a new light.
Mhm.
Maybe would you say that that's like helping them feel brave enough to like remove things that they from their task list that they really are bringing them down, they really don't
Mhm.
enjoy doing in their business?
Yeah, absolutely. In the old book, Who Moved My Cheese, there's a line that says, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" And I actually
Mhm.
use that question with folks. It's like, okay,
Mm.
what would you do if you weren't afraid? And
Mhm.
another example, just a couple of weeks ago, I was working with a client who
Mhm.
had a whole piece of paper he held up on a Zoom call. He's up in Canada. Anyway, so he holds up this piece of paper and he says, "I've got to get all this done." And it's this whole page of stuff. And he was overwhelmed. And I said, "Okay, so do you have time blocked on your calendar to accomplish those things?" No. And he said, "You know what? Why didn't I think of that? I need to do that." I said, "Okay, so one of your goals now, right, is you're going to block time on your calendar and then you're going to plug those things into those blocks." And the
Mhm.
next time we met, he had completely gotten through all of them. So he went from overwhelmed and not getting it done to it was finished and it was out of his way.
Wow. Yeah, and it's amazing how something so simple can feel so impossible or arduous,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes for business owners who are juggling so many things, maybe family obligations, the business, the innovation, the management of their team, so many things for businesses.
Absolutely. And so often, like with time management, um, people with good intent
Mhm.
let everybody else's priorities and demands
Mhm.
dominate their schedule and take all their time. So
Mhm.
rather than being in control of the process of running their
Mhm.
business is running down.
Mhm. So I have to ask, please forgive me. We can edit this out if you want, but what would you do if you weren't afraid?
um, I do it, because if I think, oh my gosh, what if? It's like,
There's
and
always something, right? There's always
yeah.
like the next thing, like because then you do the thing you're afraid to do, and then there's always something else. So what is that next
Mhm.
thing do you think for you and your business?
Um, that's a good question because, like, say, I tend to look at what's the opportunity and what's the
Mhm.
risk.
Mhm.
because you need to just kind of do that balance. And then to flip that around and say, if I don't pursue the opportunity,
Mhm.
what's the risk? Because
Mhm.
if I don't do something, there's a risk. If I do something, there's a risk. And then balancing it up to say, okay, this direction is something I can manage the risk factors in, and so I'm going to do it. So I
Mhm.
tend not to operate from I'm not going to do that because I'm afraid to kind of a basis,
Mhm.
just because it's it's an energy drain and it's just not productive.
So it sounds like you try to bring more curiosity, like when those types of when like an idea might come to you, you don't want to dismiss it just because it feels scary. You want to have some curiosity with it. Mhm.
Exactly right. And by stepping out in those ways, you expand your comfort zone. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people talk about you need to be outside your comfort zone. I think more in terms of incremental growth of your comfort zone. So you're
Mhm.
pushing the boundaries,
Mhm.
but you're
Mhm.
not living outside your comfort zone. You're just embracing more things to where your comfort zone is much larger, which
Mhm.
I think when you're running a business is really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that speaks to so many people, but especially business owners.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Is learning how to deal with a little bit of discomfort, right? Without kind of
mhm.
going so fast or so beyond it that you're kind of stuck in overwhelm.
Exactly right. Yeah, because once people reach overwhelm, then nothing happens. Like the example I was just talking about with the guy with this whole list of stuff to do. Uh,
Right.
when any of us gets to the point of being overwhelmed, typically we don't do anything.
Right. Right. So the goal is to stay just before that. Like you're challenging yourself, but not going into the overwhelm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
What do you feel has been the most surprising lesson for you that you've learned from working with entrepreneurs?
Um, how if you really are present and genuinely interested in them,
Mhm.
how vulnerable they'll become and how candid they are in what their challenges are and what their uh, frustrations and problems and needs are.
Mm, mhm.
Because
Yeah.
that openness then gives a good start point for a really strong relationship, working together to really help them get to their goals.
Mhm. So for you, it's you've been so surprised at that that genuine relationship is so rewarding from both ends, like that you're able to help them uncover because if you can't get them to share what's actually going on, how can you help them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because when you first meet someone, um, a lot of people's inclination is to say, "Yeah, everything's good,"
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you know, in a lot of conversations, that's fine. But
Mhm.
if there's something that they really need help with and need support around, for them to be open to sharing that so that we can explore, okay, what does the solution look like? What is the goal that you want to get at the end of resolving that? And then
Mhm.
that gives us the opportunity to actually lay out a plan and to accomplish things.
Mm, perfect. Thank you, Brent. There's been so
My
many
pleasure.
insight so far, and I'm really enjoying this conversation. I hate that it's coming to an end. What, for our listeners, what types of business owners really would you say benefit the most from the work that you do with them?
Yeah, really, small business owners where oftentimes they're wearing a lot of the hats, or they they don't know what's next, or they've hit a ceiling. If they're $1 million business and they would just love to grow, but they've been at a million for a while. That's an
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
So when folks are stuck, when they have a sense that there's something out there, but they don't know what that is, then
Mhm.
to explore, okay, what's a roadmap that would get me from where I'm at to where I want to be,
Mhm.
navigating through those things.
Yeah, perfect. And if you could give those entrepreneurs one piece of advice about growing profit, what would it be? I mean, we already
Um,
talked about a bunch, but just
sure.
to kind of sum it up, I guess.
don't be afraid of your numbers. Actually keep track of what you've got going on and look at why your numbers are where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't be afraid of your numbers. I love that. It's speaking about, facing your fears. Maybe that's a big one for a lot of business owners, right? That they need to
Yeah.
get started with. Yeah. And where can your listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
Um, my LinkedIn profile, Brent, Brent, Brent Holtman, on LinkedIn is a good one. Kairos Profit Coach is my website, and that's Kairos Profit Coach .com is another good one. So either just LinkedIn and my name or my website.
Thank you again, Brent. I'm really excited to share this episode.
Absolutely. Heather, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure.
All right. Thank you.